I missed him a lot today.
I know. I miss him too.
The time has come. Execute Order 66.
Alright, so Star Wars kind of sucks right now. For me, my personal interest in the Star Wars franchise is at an all-time low. I don't know what they're doing with the films, I don't know what shows they're doing, and I don't care. And then, when you think there's nothing, from the gates of heaven, Battlefront 2 returned.
Somehow,
A game that started off as an absolute nightmare 8 years ago stands as the only bit of Star Wars media I'm willing to indulge in anymore. It was Rise of Skywalker, Ray, so it doesn't actually count. May 4th brings in Star Wars celebrations, it's all going on, that makes sense. But why now in July of 2025 are servers still filling up with limited stress of actually finding games on Battlefront 2? A game from 2017 that looks incredibly stellar for the modern standard, and it's being more spoken about than either of EA's standalone Jedi games. Something about Battlefront 2 keeps pulling everyone back. As a young boy completely unprepared for the world, I loaded up Battlefront 2 in 2017 after adoring the first game, even less prepared for the storm that EA had cooked up for that sequel. Get out of the way! One of the worst experiences I'd ever had, so insanely bad, so insanely egregious with its pay-to-win format. You could grind, but it was not worth it by any stretch of the imagination, and it just wasn't fun. A genuinely awfully set up game in every sense of the word. The balance of characters was off, you basically couldn't progress without paying, and the whole point seemed to be to give us loot boxes. But then, late 2018 saw the first change. From this point on, Battlefront 2 was a whole new beast. A notably better progression system with less focus on buying your way through, and they continued the work, balancing their heroes and villains in comparison to the base classes, making everything accessible but not cheap handouts, and thankfully, the gameplay and game modes were really fun. It can be total chaos or incredibly tactical depending on how you want to go through each match, although in my experience I do think most games tend to devolve more into chaos. The variety of abilities in each class really allowed you to play however you wanted, and in every game you had the opportunity to also play as your favourite iconic characters from the movies and shows. The maps were straight up beautiful, as well as the sound design. Such an immersive experience into the Star Wars universe that you can so easily lose hours to. So the game was going strong, fans were happy, we were getting regular DLC. The Ewok Hunt edition was terrifying, but such a fun edition. What the fuck? But in 2020, we got the final DLC for Battlefront 2, the Battle of Scarif update, which after that, EA decided to leave the game to prioritise Battlefield 2042, which I'm sure went really well. So we're coming close to a 10-year gap. Why have we not got a Battlefront 3? Why are we still playing this nearly 10-year-old game to fulfill that Star Wars multiplayer gaming want? EA made it clear that they wanted to prioritise Battlefield in general, as well as Sims and other popular IPs. Mixed with the bad publicity from the pay-to-win elements of both Battlefront games, it looks like EA kind of lost hope in Battlefront. But surely we'd get some kind of multiplayer Star Wars game from someone, somewhere, to fill this huge gap in the market. Apparently not. Unless you want to count Star Wars Squadrons in 2020, there has been no multiplayer Star Wars games since 2017. The Jedi games were mostly well received, but a totally different genre, being story-based and single-player. Star Wars Outlaws came out and was presented as the free roam GTA Star Wars game, but once again, no multiplayer. And plus, Ubisoft made it, so it wasn't exactly going to be good. I think this is when we started to see small resurgences in the Battlefront 2 player base. When there was general Star Wars hype, Battlefront 2 would get some attention. The game saw peaks when different films and shows came out, even after the game was left back in 2020. We can see that on the Steam charts. However, since May this year, the game has consistently sat at the highest number of players since the game ended in 2020, hitting a peak of 35,000 players in June of this year. The last big spike before then that actually broke out of the lower thousands was in January 2021, where it hit 10,000. So this particular jump right now is levels above the previous ones, and whilst I play on PC, it seems to be a very similar situation across all consoles. Battlefront 2 right now feels like the perfect game for all sides of the fanbase. You have the shooter action as well as the lightsaber battles, vehicle movement with starfighter scraps, quick game modes that can be really fun or really terrifying. Or huge 40-minute sessions that span across multiple eras, from the prequels to the originals to the sequels, even with huge focus on getting some Clone Wars content. And quite frankly, no other Star Wars game that has come out comes even close to the level of scale and content that this game still provides. Even the aforementioned open world game doesn't have this. The only other notable stamp that Star Wars has recently had in gaming is through Fortnite, which I think just forces more of a craving for that Star Wars multiplayer. I think the wait for something to happen while seeing snippets such as characters in Fortnite was starting to slowly build the crave for another multiplayer game in this universe. A huge issue though, I think a lot of people are kind of tired of the franchise. I know I am. There has been so much content over the last few years, and after the woeful rise of Skywalker, my spirits were heavily diminished. I only gravitated towards the shows and occasional films I was interested in, and almost every time was disappointed, to the point I've really given up and have so little interest in seeing what they're doing at the moment. This rich, fascinating universe has been slowly getting smaller and smaller and destroying its own stakes. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I do feel like general audience interest has dropped as well, except for one show. One that I have not seen, but I know you know it, and that is Andor, with the release of its second and final season reminding people how Star Wars can actually be amazing. Along with the re-release of Revenge of the Sith, it seems that all the new positive interest reminded people of what Star Wars can and should be, and with that, naturally along came the craving for that multiplayer experience, and that craving was finally acted on. Star Wars fans often get a bad rep, and I think it's probably deserved, but I think Battlefront 2's player base is a shining light in a lot of negativity, especially now.
No, 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 no! Wait! Wait!
And this all leads me to the movement that you must have seen get promoted across socials recently, the Stop Killing Games movement, a petition intended to challenge corporations who so often kill games after a pretty brief time period often now, leaving entire player bases and fans behind. Gaming is in such a strange spot right now. I think it's pretty clear that the whole industry needs a shake-up from top to bottom, and I think Battlefront 2 is the perfect example of why movements like this exist. A game that was officially over, no new content, no more updates, but the fact that it was the last real Star Wars multiplayer game, and it's been left in that state for about 5 years now, has obviously left a lot to be desired for fans. And so they kind of just have taken it into their own hands and swarmed back to Battlefront 2. Mods became a huge thing for people to do, implementing stuff into the game, adding new leases of life. And even casual players were coming back to the game that realistically EA haven't wanted to touch and don't want us to think about. And that's the issue and the point of the Stop Killing Games movement. Why do these corporations get to make that choice for us, after the consumers have spent a lot of time and energy putting into the game, and most importantly, their hard-earned money into the games? If you buy a game for between 60 and 80 quid and it's gonna get shut down within a year, that's not okay, and it's only becoming worse with how so many games now seem to be released and they're just not finished. Of course, a game can't be kept up forever, I'm not saying that. New projects come in and it's just not possible. But imagine if fans, or even a different studio, could take on the servers or state of play for games after the original company or devs need to move on. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory really. A great idea that I've heard for Battlefront 2 would be that they just come back and added crossplay. That then helps all sides of the player base and is going to keep the game alive for so much longer, just because the player pool will be so much bigger and everyone can literally play all together. That would be huge, making space for artists to continue making new projects, but they don't have to see their previous work lost or diminished. They can see it continue to grow and be loved in new ways. It's a simple win-win. In a similar way to the comparisons of Blu-rays and streaming, you never own what's on streaming and it can be taken from you at any point, and Battlefront 2 fans are the perfect showcase of how these ideas can be great. So many people are coming back to Battlefront 2 and having a great time, and it's even making EA loads of money because people are buying the game again. There's really no downsides to the changes that people are asking for in the industry, but only time will tell. Being able to hop into a match and enjoy this incredibly well-made game really continues to be a blast. Visually stunning with unique maps that are so grand and vast across iconic locations we recognise from our favourite movie moments, it's so much fun. It can be pretty grindy, but never too much to the point where you get too frustrated. There's a good balance of skill in the effort to use heroes in matches, and they feel suitably strong, but killable enough. If you haven't played Battlefront 2 in a while, get a squad on, and I can assure you, you'll have a brilliant time.